welcome to the Smart Publishing Impact Series. I'm Renée Lautermilch, Chief Editor at Smart Publishing, and this is the podcast where we explore all things writing, publishing, and the impact of storytelling. In each episode, I'll share insights and strategies to help you navigate the book journey, whether you're writing, publishing, or already an author. Plus, you'll hear from inspiring authors who are using their book to change lives. And if you're passionate about storytelling and ready to make an impact, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. Now let's get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Smart Publishing Impact Series with your host, Renée Lautermilch, and Chief Editor at Smart Publishing. Today's episode is a milestone episode. It's actually episode 40. So we almost have as many episodes as years as I am old. So I thought that we would do one on something that is frequently talked about quite a bit. I've probably talked about this in past episodes, but there have been a few changes since then. It's all about pricing strategy. What pricing strategy are you going to go with for your book? What does it look like in different formats? How does that play into royalties? So we'll discuss all of those things today. And of course, I would say almost every year or two, things update a little bit because the economy changes. So, pricing strategy first and foremost is not stagnant. It's not something that is a static strategy. You should consistently be reevaluating and revising your strategy based off of how many sales you're getting or not getting. And then, of course, things in the external market, book pricing trends, those sorts of things. So it's definitely not a set it and forget it type of thing. There are quite a few strategies because it all depends on what you're looking to do and what format it is. And so I would say that there's a strategy for launching your book. I would say that there's a strategy for just your book post launch being for sale. I would say that there's even a strategy for special events that you're going to do. And then there are different strategies based off of the genre of your book and based off of what I'm going to call the clout of your book and the industry of your book. So there's a lot of different factors, and it is not completely unique to every author, but it's not a one size fits all approach. So let's talk about first and foremost your release strategy. Your release strategy should always be a low barrier offer. I don't care what industry you're in. I don't care who you are. It should always be a low barrier offer if you want to get, and maximize your readers. So the whole point of your book is to get it in front of people. And if you're pricing people out because they're not willing to take the risk of, let's say that you launch your book. I've seen people launch their book and nobody knows who they are as an author. Like it's very DIY looking, and they launch their book at like $20. Maybe your grandmother and your mom will buy it because they want to support you, but you're not going to get people who are not familiar with you, especially if your book doesn't look professional. You're not going to get very many readers that way, and so you're going to collect dust and obscurity. Not the way to go. So definitely low barrier offer, and especially if you're trying to hit bestseller, then it's all about pushing volume on a single day. So you need to hit as many one-day orders as you possibly can within a single format. So either print or digital. I will say good luck if you're doing print, because the way that orders are counted on print, it's not instant and it varies a whole lot. So it's very difficult to control. That's why we do one-day Kindle only sales, because when someone buys a Kindle, it is instantly delivered, which means that it is converted to an order almost instantaneously after somebody purchases it. So as many one-day orders as possible. For that reason, where we are able to, based off of the file size of the Kindle, we price it at 99 cents. That's as low as you can price it. So, hey, everybody's got a dollar laying around. Find some spare change somewhere. That's a very low barrier. You're going to get as many potential readers as that way. You're going to get it in front of as many people, and then you're going to push volume to hopefully hit bestseller. There are instances in which if your file is a little bit larger, let's say you have a lot of images and things, it may not let you set it below $1.99. It's just all based off of the delivery fee, the digital delivery fee that KDP puts on your Kindle, which is anywhere between I've seen it as high as 16 cents. And typically, if your book isn't a really high file size, it's going to be about 8 cents. Um, so that is your pricing strategy. Um, I always put books in KDP Select. So that's, I mean, obviously that's not technically like a pricing strategy, but it is a way to get your book in front of a larger audience and have a low barrier offer, because anybody who is a Kindle Unlimited member and essentially can rent or borrow your book as part of their KDP unlimited membership. And it's a bit of a funky way in how royalties are distributed from KDP Select, but those do go into orders. And it also does show up in the form of compensation. It's basically based off of how many KDP Unlimited orders are taking place in a certain given time frame, and then based off of how much volume each author is selling underneath the KDP Select program, KDP sort of divides, within that volume range, an appropriate amount of royalty funds based off of that. So let's just say that there's an author out there where, like, and this probably never happens, but that this is just an example, like 50% of those KDP Unlimited orders are due to them. They're going to get a 50% share, of what those royalties are in the royalty bucket, because they are, essentially taking, that amount of the orders are going to them. So it's distributed based off of, the percentage or the share of the KDP Unlimited um, book, quote unquote, purchases. I don't know that you can call them purchases that people make. So to me, I'm like, it's gonna get it out there in front of more people. So why wouldn't you do it? Because at the end of the day, the riches ain't in the royalties. So you can go back. That's actually an episode that I did previously in this podcast. If you are like, your whole strategy is trying to like make a living off of royalties, good luck. There are people who are doing it, and those people are typically within the top 1 to 2% of authors. So there are even New York Times bestselling authors, plenty of them, who are not making a living off of their royalties. You really need to have some kind of additional or alternative strategy of how you're making money through your book. If it's in business genre, I really hope it's helping to funnel people into your value ladder. If it's in fiction, hopefully, we've got a children's book author who is doing merchandise. So merchandising is what he's really having his books lead to, where he's trying to make, more of his money. So that is all about launch. Now let's get into sort of your everyday pricing. Now this is going to be based off of your genre. Um, it's going to be based off of your format. Obviously you wouldn't set your hardcover, paperback, and Kindle all at the same price. And it's also going to be based off of your either industry or clout, I will say. So there is a place for books that are on the less expensive end, where those books will do well. And what I had been doing up until probably mid-year this year, was placing paperbacks at around 9.99, low barrier. Typically anything below $10 somebody sees as like, a pretty good deal to be able to get it. Hardcovers I was placing just under 15. And then Kindle, I was placing anywhere no lower than 2.99, but all the way up to 5.99. And that was for formats or genres per se that are more like memoir style. So it's like somebody's story. It's still nonfiction, but it's very story driven, because what you'll see in fiction and then story driven genres are those are a little bit on the less expensive side. um, because one, that's just sort of how retailers and publishers are listing them. But two, people who consume those sorts of genres, story driven genres, they tend to read through those books at a lot faster rate, and they tend to buy more books. And so that's why those are typically placed a little bit lower, because the consumption is higher. So the idea is, let's keep this person buying more. If we're pricing it higher, they're not going to be able to afford to consume as much as they're consuming. And that's also why you'll see, again, a lot of fiction and memoir story telling sort of genre under Kindle Unlimited, because those people are voracious readers, and they really like to consume a lot of media. And that means that cost is an issue, and cost is something that they have to think about, because they have to be able to afford to do so. Um, we've seen, of course, it's 2025, November 5th when I'm recording this. And oh boy, I don't know that there's anybody out there that would argue with the fact that we've really, really seen prices just skyrocket, and all sorts of areas. People are paying more for groceries. Gas prices are decent. We're paying more for real estate with how COVID pushed that up, and it hasn't really come down much. Just things are more expensive, right? And because of that, KDP hasn't necessarily upped its printing costs or anything that much. But you have seen other retailers up costs a little bit. So I've been doing paperbacks now at about 16.99 ish for hardcover, about 10.99 for paperback. And I'm doing about 4.99 to 5.99, sometimes 6.99 for Kindle. Again, in those same genres, because as prices are rising, and as the barrier to entry when it comes to publishing a book is getting lower, the quality is getting lower as well. And so there's something that is, I'll refer to it as a pricing signal that can get made, where if you price your book too low on an ongoing basis, so this is not just for launch, if your book is priced too low on an ongoing basis, somebody may look at it and be like, okay, what's wrong with it? Or that must mean that the quality of this isn't very good. So that is why I've tried to stay consistent with what you're seeing in those genres from not more major publishers, but on an average basis, mostly, through looking at Amazon, what's selling as possible. So now that's really sort of the storytelling driven side. Now let's talk about things that are more in the business genre. Um, I will price those a little bit higher because, one, your customer is different. You may have the same person read a memoir and also skip over to read a book on, we'll just say, small business lending. Um, but typically in the business driven genre, that's going to be somebody who is, running a business, leading a business. It's typically somebody who is in a higher income bracket. it is somebody who is looking for specific information, um, they usually don't consume as voraciously as story-driven genre consumers. And so they're not buying books as often, and they're very intentional about what books they're going to buy. And so pricing those a little bit higher. Again, we go in the pricing signal strategy here that they're looking for something that is reputable and something that is more apt to help them do a thing, to help them get better at something, to help them learn something. And so they're really, really looking for spending their money on quality. And again, if it's priced too low, there's a signaling quality that can say to them, well, this must not be very good. So paperback, you can have anywhere from like a 12.99 to like a 14.99 typically does pretty well. Hardcover, you can drive that up to somewhere around like a 18.99 to a 19.99. Kindle, I wouldn't price it any lower than like a 5.99. You can drive up to an 8.99 on that as well. Um, Now let's talk about high clout or industry specific. This is where we start really getting the price up there. So clout would just be if you've got some like heavy hitter names on this. There's like some names that people within that genre, that industry, they really know. So that is going to, of course, signal that this is a high quality, reputable book, and you have to have a pricing strategy to match that, so people don't look at it and think, "Wait a minute, something feels off here." Also, there are certain industries where, when books are published in those industries, they just have higher price points. So I've got a book behind me, Data Security in the Age of AI, which is a perfect example of that. That is a cybersecurity industry book. And books in the cybersecurity industry are typically priced much higher than other types of books. Same thing. I originally come from the learning and development industry, and when you see books in the learning and development industry that are focused on, education and upskilling for learning and development practitioners, those are industry books. Those are priced much higher. So when we look at something like data security in the age of AI, you might have a Kindle that bottom price is 9.99, to where you could even push that up to 19.99. I think is the highest amount that KDP will allow you to set a Kindle. And that's great because the majority of the royalty margin that you can get is on Kindle, because there's no print costs. There's only the digital delivery cost. So you get much better margin on your digital stuff than you do on your print. Now, for your paperback, that might be priced as high as, I think, Anand, the author of Data Security in the Age of AI, has his priced at like 29.99 right now, and it's selling well because that's what people in the industry are accustomed to paying. And when you look at his hardcover, he didn't charge too much higher on his hardcover. His hardcover is priced at 35.99, but that in itself is a specific strategy because Anand wants to drive more people to buy his paperback. So that's sort of the sweet spot there. Um, is really driving people to buy that. So that's why the Kindle pricing, I think he has it at 19.99. Somebody looks and they're like, "Oh, I only pay a little bit more and I can get the paperback copy. Or, I could just pay $5 more and get the hardcover." And then they go ahead and they do that and they buy a print format, which is what he's preferring to do, is to have a hard copy in somebody's hands. Um, Now, high clout books, if it's not an industry book, but it's high clout book, I may not necessarily price it that high. Fostering Potential in People is a really good example of a high clout book that we recently did. The foreword is written by Dave Evans, a New York Times best-selling author, and Stanford professor and creator of the Life Design Lab, or this Design Your Life Lab. Hopefully, I got that one of those I got right. It also has, authors in it, like one of the co-creators of Alienware, people who are very well known leaders within the tech industry, leaders of Fortune 50 and even Fortune 10 companies. So some pretty big names. Now that one, I believe, we've got the Kindle priced probably around $8.99 to $9.99. If you have a high clout book like that, you can price your paperback. Around like a 14.99 to, probably a little bit closer to the $20 range. And then you can put your paperback up to about a third, or not your paperback, your hardcover up to about a $30 range. So again, because there's a level of signaling, like if you're walking around a car lot and you see a really nice looking car, or you see a car you're interested in, and then you get closer, and instead of $16,000, which, okay, wow, that's a great deal, you see $6,000, you're like, something's wrong with this. I'm going to keep looking. There's price signaling there. The same thing happens, across, different priced items. It's just like a psychological thing. Now, the last thing I'll get into when it comes to pricing strategy is special events pricing. So, if you really want to make sure that your book stays um, as a bestseller, or is consistently in the top 10 bestsellers for your categories, a really great strategy is, if you travel and you go to industry conventions, or you have speaking events, or anything where it's bringing more eyes on you, and you have more opportunity to sell more books as part of that. Again, I'll go back to Anand Singh, the author of Data Security in the Age of AI. That guy like stays traveling across conventions. If you know anything about cybersecurity, you know that there's 50,000 conventions within the cybersecurity industry. They have like a convention every weekend. It's crazy. And he's also a traveling guest professor too. He's a PhD, so he travels and does guest lectures at universities as well. And so every time he has one of these events, one, he brings books with him, because what you can do is you can order author copies off of KDP for the cost of how much it costs to print the book and how much it costs to ship you a box of books. And then you are totally free to price those accordingly and sell them hand to hand. So, um, they leave all of that up to the author, and so he is always bringing copies with him. I think in most cases, some of those are promotional, and so I think he's giving some of those away for free, because you might hand one to a CEO, and then the CEO is like, our IT team doesn't know any of this. Can you come and consult us on that? Now we've got a paid consulting opportunity, right? So, but if you want to price them, you're going to some kind of book fair, book signing thing. You can order copies and set, a reasonable price on those. You can also do the same thing from a wholesale standpoint with local book retailers. But he also adjusts his Kindle pricing back down to 99 cents when he does like a lot of these university lectures, because you've got students, right? And students don't necessarily have all the money in the world. And so what he does is, he pushes that, hey, special deal for this. If you go to Amazon right now, you can get my Kindle for just 99 cents. He ends up selling a bunch of Kindle orders that way, and it boop boosts his ranking and his categories right back up, and pushes him right back up to bestseller again. So think about every single time that you're going to some kind of event or something where there's going to be more opportunities. think about a strategy with your book. Do you want to have do you want to boost yourself back up to bestseller through Kindle? Do you want to bring hard copies of your book and sell them, or are there specific people who are influencers, or could be whale clients for you potentially, where you want to give them a really nice copy, maybe the hardcover. That's why we always do hardcover, because it's like a VIP giveaway. Um, and you want to put one signed by you in their hand. So that is another aspect of pricing strategy. And I hope by now you can see what I said when I started in this episode is that pricing strategy, it's not static. Don't set it and forget it. And it's not a one size fits all approach. You're going to do something different for your launch. You're going to do something different for each format of your book, based off of where your genre is and whether or not you're in an industry that has higher priced books, or you've got a high clout book. You're going to have a different pricing strategy. And then, for all the different opportunities that you're doing throughout the year, you might think about adjusting, a short term promotional strategy as well. All up to you, all configurable in your Kindle or in your KDP pricing page within your KDP account. You can make those adjustments anytime. Once you do, it only takes about 24 hours usually. It can take up to 72, but I've really never seen it take beyond 24 hours for that new pricing to be live. So, yeah. Hope that this was helpful for you guys. Happy episode 40. Yay. If you have not subscribed already, please hit that subscribe button. Tell somebody that you know who could benefit from this podcast about it. Share it out with them. If you have 60 seconds, I would also be so honored and appreciative if you would rate and review. It helps get this podcast out in front of more people who can be helped by the information that I share. And then reach out to me. I am on Facebook, Renée Lautermilch, Termilch. Sorry, little brain fart there. That's my husband's last name, so it's my married last name. And sometimes I take a second where I'm like, wait a minute, how do you spell this again off the top of my head? So Renée Lautermilch, as my husband says, CH in German creates a K sound. I am the only one in the world. So when you search me on Facebook, which is where I am mostly, I'm the only one who will come up. Follow me there, send me a DM if you have any questions about anything. I always love to hear from folks and help you with whatever it is that you're working on. And you can also find me on smartpublishingservices.com, as can you find additional educational content in the form of our blog, more podcast episodes of this podcast. We have courses on there as well. So hopefully something will help you with what you're working on. And we're actually working on a 1-hour author course right now that will hopefully be available come the new year, that walks you through just what my book, The 1-Hour Author, A Simple Guide to Writing and Publishing on a Busy Schedule, walks everybody through, which is the process all the way from coming up with what you're even going to write about all the way through continued marketing of your book after its launch. So it is an A to Z, nuts and bolts manual, essentially, an engaging manual. It's not anything too heavy. It's actually only 97 pages on how to successfully write and publish your book. So we're creating a course version. It's going to be very cool. We're in the works on that already. All right. So thank you for joining me this week. I hope to see you here next week. And as I always say, keep writing your story, because the world needs your voice. Until next time.